Security Council that he would like to see all U.S. troops withdrawn from Syria within 6 months, and just days later, reports broke out that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad had his military carry out horrific chemical attacks on innocent civilians. On Sunday, April 8, 2018, Trump lashed out on Twitter in response to the suspected chemical attack in the Syrian city of Douma. The president directly blamed Assad and blasted Russian President Vladimir Putin, in addition to Iran, for supporting Assad. Trump's brutal warning for Assad and his international allies was sent out on Twitter. Many dead, including women and children, in mindless chemical attack in Syria. Area of atrocity is in lockdown and encircled by Syrian army, making it completely inaccessible to outside world. President Putin, Russia and Iran are responsible for backing Assad. Big price to pay. Open area immediately for medical help and verification. Another humanitarian disaster for no reason whatsoever. Sick, Trump wrote in 2 consecutive tweets. In a brutal follow-up to his warning, Trump blasted former President Barack Obama for his colossal failure to deal with Assad when he had the chance. If President Obama had crossed his stated red line in the sand, the Syrian disaster would have ended long ago. Assad would have been history, Trump added. Reports of the chemical attack began coming from Syrian opposition activists and rescuers who claimed that a poison gas attack on the rebel-held town of Douma near the capital of Damascus killed approximately 40 people. The Syrian and Russian governments have completely denied the alleged attack, and the claims that Syrian forces directly targeted civilians and young children could not be independently confirmed. Many Americans praised Trump for ordering missile strikes on the Syrian airbase almost exactly a year earlier after the Assad regime used chemical weapons to murder innocent civilians on April 4, 2017. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, recently spoke about the chemical attack in 2017. The women, children, and men who died at the hands of the Assad regime on April 4, 2017, deserve justice, and we will not rest until the regime is held accountable. We expect all parties involved to live up to their promise in 2013 and to ensure that the Assad regime stops its senseless use of chemical weapons against the Syrian people.
The White House is not only warning Syria against another chemical weapons attack this morning, it's also putting Iran and Russia on notice, too, that they will bear some responsibility if Syria does act. This all comes as the president's foreign policy is coming under fresh scrutiny. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad making a rare appearance outside of Damascus, touring a Russian-leased military base in Syria, even climbing into a Russian fighter jet. The visit some see as defiant, coming just hours after the U.S. put his regime on notice over a potential chemical weapons plot. Press Secretary Sean Spicer telling Assad in a statement if he conducts another chemical weapons attack, he and his military will pay a heavy price. The message came as a surprise to some senior national security officials who tell NBC News they were caught off guard by the timing of the statement and the threat of military action, a major step. Some in the Defense and State Department stress they were aware of the intelligence. Now the White House is pushing back, arguing all necessary officials were alerted. Was there a principals meeting, a deputies meeting before that statement was issued by Sean Spicer?
I know that there was a routine meeting that took place.
But this isn't the first time President Trump may have kept some in his own team guessing when it comes to foreign policy.
Big stuff.
One of the president's very first actions, his controversial travel ban targeting residents of 7 Muslim-majority nations, was announced after limited consultation among the affected agencies. Mr. Trump then signed off on a raid in Yemen over dinner with a few key advisors. But the disconnect was publicly on display earlier this month when Saudi Arabia announced an embargo against Qatar, a key American ally. Trump's Secretary of State criticized the move, but the president tweeted his approval and then blasted Qatar from the Rose Garden.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism.
The White House, however, is on the same page when it comes to their strategy on facing the press. After days of refusing to answer questions on camera, this tense exchange between a journalist and Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders after she slammed coverage of the so-called Russian Trump hoax.
News outlets get to go on day after day and cite unnamed sources, use stories without sources.
We're here to ask you questions.
Right.
We're here to provide the answers. And what you just did is inflammatory to people all over the country.
Sanders said in a recent statement, according to Daily Caller. After the recent chemical attacks, first responders claimed they found families suffocated in their homes and shelters, with foam on their mouths. The Syrian Civil Defense, an organization linked to forces opposing the Assad regime, claimed that 42 fatalities were confirmed so far but were kept from any further searching due to difficulty breathing, according to Siraj Mahmoud, a spokesman for the group which is known as the White Helmets. President Donald Trump is not playing around with Assad and will be sending a strong message very soon in retaliation for the chemical attacks on civilians. While many don't see it necessary for America to police the rest of the world, the immediate answer to the ongoing civil war in Syria cannot be to simply withdraw and take no action at all. That kind